Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt mysteriously drained? Not just tired, but emotionally foggy, spiritually dimmed, and somehow less yourself? Maybe the other person seemed kind, charming, even spiritual, but deep down something didn't feel right. You couldn't quite explain it, but your body knew. Your spirit knew. What if that wasn't in your head? What if there's a deeper, unseen dynamic at play? One that explains why some people lift you up just by being near them, while others leave you feeling like your light has been siphoned through a straw. Welcome to the world of lightworkers and energy vampires, a subtle but powerful polarity that exists across spiritual teachings, psychological research, and lived human experience. This video is not about imagination or fear. It's about discernment, because once you understand these two archetypes, what they are, how they operate, and most importantly, which one you're becoming, your relationships, your boundaries, and your entire energetic life begin to make sense. This is the unseen war no one told you about, and it's time to learn which side you're really on. First, let's learn about energy vampires, those who only eat, not feel be. They don't wear capes. They don't creep through dark corridors with sharp teeth or haunted eyes. In fact, they often look like the people closest to you, your partner, your parent, your coworker, even your so-called spiritual guide. Energy vampires aren't mythical monsters. They are real, walking among us every day, draining the emotional and spiritual life force of others, quietly, relentlessly, and often unconsciously. So, who are they really? An energy vampire is not simply a difficult person. We all have bad days. We all vent, complain, or fall into neediness sometimes. But what separates an energy vampire from an ordinary human having a rough patch is this: they don't self source energy, they feed off yours. Instead of generating their own sense of wholeness, purpose, or peace, they extract it from the people around them. They seek attention, validation, emotional responses, not to connect, but to survive. In psychological terms, many exhibit traits of narcissism, borderline personality disorder, or unresolved trauma. But in spiritual terms, something even deeper is at play. It's not just a personality structure, it's an energetic architecture, a lack of inner light that leaves them dependent on the glow of others. The most dangerous energy vampires don't shout or scream. They don't always manipulate with cruelty. Some are soft spoken, some cry a lot, some flatter you endlessly, some call themselves healers. What makes them so difficult to spot is their uncanny ability to mirror what you want to see. They know how to say just enough to seem sincere. They know how to show just enough pain to pull your empathy. And they know how to spin just enough chaos to keep you off balance, confused, guilty, and wide open for energetic extraction. As Dr. Judith Orloff, a clinical psychiatrist and empathic healer, writes in the Empath Survival Guide, energy vampires can appear harmless, even appealing at first, but their core is rooted in emotional manipulation, chronic need, and a vacuum where their own self-energy should be. From a psychological lens, energy vampires often suffer from a fragmented sense of self. Childhood neglect, emotional abuse, or conditional love may have wired them to believe that love must be taken, not received freely. They learn to perform instead of be present, to extract instead of exchange. This creates a dependency loop. Their nervous system doesn't regulate through introspection or silence, it regulates through emotional interaction. So they provoke, bait, or charm in order to keep that loop alive. They need you activated because your activation feeds them. Carl Jung described a similar pattern when discussing the unconscious individual who projects their disowned shadow onto others, forcing others to carry the weight of their emotional work. In this sense, energy vampires are not inherently evil. They are energetically and emotionally immature, but that doesn't make their impact any less harmful. It's important to distinguish between emotional and energetic vampires. Emotional vampires drain you through overt drama, meltdowns, guilt-tripping, passive aggression, and constant crisis. Energetic vampires, on the other hand, may say very little. They might even seem perfectly pleasant. But after interacting with them, you feel foggy, disconnected, heavy, like your clarity just leaked out of your skin. This energetic drain isn't a metaphor. According to both Eastern and Western energy systems, like traditional Chinese medicine's concept of Shen or Indian yogic systems prana, your life force is a real, measurable energy field. And certain people, whether knowingly or not, siphon it. They hook into your light, drawing it into themselves not to evolve, but to feel alive. Spiritual teachers like G.I.V. Gurdjieff and Rudolf Steiner warned of these mechanical people whose lives are run by unconscious programming rather than soul presence. They do not seek truth, they seek control, not growth, but power through dependence. They are not creators of energy, but recyclers of emotional chaos. And the more open, empathetic, or light-filled you are, the more attractive you become to them. Chaos is fuel. The energy vampire doesn't need resolution. They need reaction. Your frustration, over-explaining, tears, or emotional labor are not just interpersonal transactions to them. They are energetic meals. This is why boundaries confuse them. This is why silence infuriates them, because in stillness, the game ends. The mask slips, the extraction stops. When you refuse to play, you cut the circuit, and that terrifies them. Why this matters so much right now. We are living in an age of overstimulation, nervous system dysregulation, and spiritual confusion. As more people awaken to their empathic gifts, many have not yet learned how to discern between resonance and manipulation, between presence and performance. This lack of discernment is precisely what energy vampires exploit. They masquerade as soulmates, coaches, influencers, even lightworkers, using the vocabulary of love, but none of its frequency. They say, "I see you," but never truly feel you. They say, "I care," but it's conditional, always transactional, always tied to their need to feed. And if you don't know what to look for, you may find yourself drained before you ever know what happened. Because here's the truth. Energetic vampirism doesn't just steal your energy. It distorts your self-perception. It makes you question your intuition. It clouds your inner knowing. And over time, it can lead you to believe that your light is the problem, when in fact, it was always the target. But you don't have to stay in the dark. In the next section, we'll explore how to identify the most common signs of energetic vampirism and how your body already knows the truth if you learn to listen. When it feels like something's off, it is. You don't need a therapist, a psychic, or a spiritual teacher to tell you when someone is draining you. Your nervous system knows. Your breath knows. Your body tightens, your thoughts scatter, and you walk away from the interaction feeling smaller, like a piece of you just quietly disappeared. That's not subtle. That's not your imagination. That's the signature of energetic vampirism. And the first step to reclaiming your light is learning to see it for what it is. You feel tired after being around them, even if nothing bad happened. This is the most consistent sign of an energy vampire is post-interaction fatigue. You could have had what seemed like a polite conversation, no yelling, no conflict, just a casual lunch or a phone call. But afterward, you feel drained. Your motivation crashes, your mood dips. You feel slightly off, but you can't explain why. That's the trap. Because energy vampires aren't just emotional wrecking balls. Many are skilled performers. The interaction feels smooth, but what they were really doing was pulling from your field. They don't need to insult you or argue. They just need your attention, your energy, to be wide open. Pay attention to how you feel after you leave them, not just during. That's when the truth emerges. You realize that their emotions aren't real. They seem rehearsed. They cry, but the tears dry instantly. They apologize, but it feels like a script. They say they're grateful, but the words don't land. Why? Because energy vampires often operate from mimicry, not authenticity. You may notice their emotional reactions are just slightly off, either overblown or underwhelming. They laugh too hard at something not funny. They say, "I love you," too soon. Their compliments feel hollow. Their anger flares and vanishes without resolution. These aren't just quirks. These are energetic cues. What's missing is the vibration behind the words. There's no resonance, no depth, no connection that lingers. You walk away wondering, did I imagine that weirdness? No, you didn't. You start to doubt yourself when you're with them. This is one of the more sinister signs. They don't attack you. They make you attack yourself. You forget what you were going to say mid-sentence. You stumble over your truth. You second-guess your feelings. You explain yourself more than usual. You feel like you're too sensitive, too intense, too needy, when just hours ago you felt clear and grounded. Welcome to the fog. Energy vampires often employ subtle gaslighting, not through outright denial, but through energetic distortion. They may raise an eyebrow at your boundaries, change the subject when you open up, react with silence or sarcasm when you're vulnerable. And suddenly, you're no longer confident in what you feel. You shrink, you retract, you make yourself smaller so they feel more comfortable. That's not emotional safety. That's energetic erosion. They mirror you until they can manipulate you. In the beginning, they seem perfect. They like what you like, they speak your language, they reflect your values. But slowly, their true shape starts to emerge, one that doesn't align with what they first presented. This is emotional mimicry, a classic tool of energy vampires. They hook into your nervous system by creating false resonance. They study you, copy your tone at your pace, affirm your worldview until you trust them. And once that trust is established, the slow siphoning begins. They might demand more of your time. They expect you to rescue them emotionally. They unload their pain constantly, but never ask about yours. And if you start pulling back, they guilt you for abandoning them. It's not connection, it's control dressed as closeness. They don't evolve, they loop. You've had the same conversation 5 times. You've offered the same support, advice, compassion, and yet they stay stuck in the same place. Why? Because energy vampires aren't interested in growth. They're interested in keeping your emotional attention. Even when they talk about healing or spirituality, notice if it's performative. Do they apply what they say, or do they use growth language as a way to keep the drama going? Phrases like, I'm just such an empath. I know I need to heal. I just can't do it alone. People always leave me. These sound like vulnerability, but if they're repeated without change, they're actually emotional bait. It keeps the dynamic lopsided, you growing, them looping. True growth is reflective. Cycles close, lessons land. But with energy vampires, the story never ends because your energy is the fuel that keeps their dysfunction alive. If you express a boundary, they get defensive. If you share a feeling, they say you're overreacting. If you ask for space, they call you cold. Over time, you begin to feel like nothing you do is quite right. This isn't just poor communication. It's energetic inversion, a dynamic where your light becomes the perceived threat. And in order to stay in their world, you're forced to dull yourself, apologize for being too much, and stay small enough to be accepted. This is one of the most dangerous signs because it doesn't just deplete your energy, it breaks your spirit. Conflict always ends with you being the problem. Energy vampires may not look malicious. In fact, many are deeply wounded. But intention doesn't erase impact. The truth is, if someone consistently makes you feel foggy, small, confused, or unworthy, your body is already waving the red flag your mind is afraid to name. So, what now? That's what we'll uncover next. Because once you've seen the pattern of energy drain, you must begin to remember who you really are. And that's where Lightworkers come in. In the next part, we'll explore what it means to carry light in a world that feeds on it, and how you might be far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. The souls that came to heal, not to hide. If you've ever felt like you don't quite fit in this world, like your heart breaks a little too easily, your presence shifts the room, or your silence speaks louder than most people's words, you're not imagining things. You might be a lightworker. In a world that often rewards noise, dominance, and shallow validation, lightworkers move differently. They operate on a deeper frequency, one attuned to truth, healing, and consciousness itself. They are not perfect, they're not always enlightened, and they're certainly not always comfortable. But what makes them rare is this: they carry light, not to be admired, but to awaken others. So what does that actually mean? Lightworkers feel deeply. Even when it hurts you, don't just see suffering, you absorb it. You walk into a room and immediately pick up on the unspoken tension. You talk to someone and instinctively know what they're hiding. You witness injustice and feel it in your bones, not just your mind. This is emotional intelligence on a soul level. It's not always convenient. It can feel like a curse, especially when others accuse you of being too sensitive, too dramatic, or too much. But that sensitivity, that rawness, that ache for a better world, it's not weakness, it's signal. It means you were built to feel what others deny so that healing becomes possible. They sense the unspoken truth in people and situations. You might not always have the right words, but you always know when something's off. Lightworkers are finely tuned instruments for energetic integrity. You can spot manipulation through tone. You feel dishonesty through body language. You can't explain how, you just know. This inner compass often makes you uncomfortable in normal environments. Workplaces built on ego, families built on silence, relationships built on performance. You may have try because lightworkers don't thrive in environments that dim truth. They're designed to illuminate it. They are born with an inner pull toward healing, growth, and service. Even when your own life feels messy, you find yourself holding space for others. You may be the therapist friend, the one people cry to, the one who instinctively knows the right thing to say, even if no one ever gave that to you. You're not here to fix others, but your presence alone creates room for healing. Lightworkers often gravitate toward roles like teachers, artists, empaths, or intuitive guides. But you don't have to be in a helping profession to carry this energy. It's not a job title, it's a soul contract. It's in the way you speak, the way you notice what others overlook, the way you can sit with darkness without flinching. You don't just want others to change, you want them to remember who they really are. Their struggles often begin in childhood. Many lightworkers are born into families or systems that do not recognize or nurture their gifts. You may have felt misunderstood, out of place, too emotional, too curious, too intense. You may have been gaslit for your intuition, silenced for your truth, punished for your light. But this wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Because only those who've walked through the dark and chosen to carry light anyway can truly guide others. These early wounds often become the roots of wisdom. And the path of the Lightworker is not about transcending pain, it's about alchemizing it into presence, into compassion, into power. They are often misunderstood, but they keep showing up. You may have noticed that you don't click with large groups. Small talk exhausts you, shallow praise doesn't motivate you. Performative positivity irritates you. That's because your soul isn't here to fit in, it's here to break the mold. And sometimes that means walking alone. But not because you're lost, because you're ahead. Lightworkers often walk a lonely road, not because no one loves them, but because they refuse to betray their inner truth just to belong. And while that can be isolating, it's also liberating, because over time, you stop craving external validation, you stop chasing people who don't see you, and you start anchoring your life in something deeper, your own resonance. They don't just want to be good, they want to be real. This is perhaps the defining trait of a true lightworker: authenticity over image. You're not trying to appear perfect, you'd rather be awkward, but honest than polished and fake. You'd rather speak a truth that makes people uncomfortable than tell a lie that wins applause. You'd rather lose approval than lose yourself. And in a world obsessed with filters, branding, and spiritual bypassing, that makes you rare. It also makes you a target, because the brighter your light, the more you'll attract those who've never learned to create their own. Which brings us back to energy vampires. They find lightworkers irresistible, not because they love you, but because they crave what lives inside you: your peace, your empathy, your insight, your stillness. And if you're not careful, their hunger will become your depletion. That's why knowing who you are is only the first step. The real mastery comes in knowing how to protect it, because you weren't sent here to burn out. You weren't meant to carry everyone. You're here to be a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how to protect your energy, not by shutting down, but by standing firm in your light. Because boundaries aren't walls, they're the sacred edges that make your light sustainable. How to protect your energy. Don't close your heart, don't become bitter, but stay steadfast. When you first realize you're a lightworker, or even just someone sensitive to energy, the natural instinct is to retreat, to close the gates, to build walls so high nothing and no one can get through. And if you've been burned often enough, that retreat can start to feel like safety. But here's the paradox. You can't share your light with the world if you're hiding it under armor. The work isn't about hardening, it's about fortifying. Not about numbing out, but learning to stand strong with your heart still open. So how do you protect your energy in a world that feeds off of it without shutting down who you are? It starts here. 1, know your signal. Tune into your inner compass. You have something more powerful than logic or intuition alone. It's an inner energetic radar that reads people, spaces, and situations before your mind catches up. You've felt it before. The subtle tension in your chest, the sudden fatigue in your limbs, the mental fog rolling in after talking to someone who didn't seem that bad. Those aren't overreactions, they're intelligence. Begin by listening, not to what people say, but to how your body responds. Does your energy expand around someone or contract? Do you feel calm and clear or scattered and on edge? Start tracking this like data. Notice the people you feel energized around versus the ones who leave you depleted. Over time, you'll build an energetic map of who aligns with your frequency and who doesn't. This isn't judgment, it's discernment, and discernment is your first line of defense. 2. Don't match their frequency. Anchor in yours. One of the most subtle traps of energy vampires is emotional entrainment. They pull you into their rhythm, fast, chaotic, victimized, or self-centered, and suddenly you're no longer acting from your truth. You're reacting to their storm. Your job isn't to fight the storm, it's to become the mountain. When someone tries to bait you with drama, negativity, or emotional manipulation, pause. Feel your feet on the floor, breathe into your belly. Remember who you are. And instead of matching their energy, hold your own. You're not cold for doing this. You're not cruel. You're centered. And the more you practice it, the more your nervous system learns that you don't have to leave yourself to survive others. 3. Stop explaining your boundaries. Start embodying them. You don't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation to justify your no. You don't need to defend your need for space, solitude, or energetic clarity. The people who truly see you will respect your boundary without needing to understand every detail. The ones who resist, they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Let that sink in. Protecting your energy means honoring your own yes and no before you honor someone else's expectations. It means not responding to texts right away if you're depleted. It means not answering phone calls just because they're ringing. It means leaving a conversation that feels wrong, even if it makes you look rude. You were not born to explain yourself into exhaustion. You were born to live in alignment, and alignment rarely pleases everyone. 4. Create daily energy hygiene rituals. We brush our teeth and shower to maintain physical hygiene, but what do we do to clear the energetic grime that builds up from emotional exposure, screen time, and spiritual static? If you're a lightworker, energy hygiene isn't optional, it's essential. Here are a few grounding practices that rebuild your energetic field. Smudging or cleansing with incense. Use sage, palo santo, or frankincense to clear your aura. Salt baths. Add sea salt, baking soda, or Epsom salts to your bath to pull out energetic residue. Earthing. Place your bare feet on the ground for at least 10 to 15 minutes daily. Chakra clearing meditations. Focus especially on your solar plexus, personal power, and heart, emotional balance. Golden light visualization. Imagine a golden shield around you that filters energy in and out. Make these small acts sacred, not because you're afraid of the dark, but because you're devoted to the light. 5. Don't engage. Observe, then disengage. Not every conflict requires your voice. Not every projection requires your correction. And not every emotional outburst is your responsibility to soothe. One of the most powerful tools a lightworker can master is non-engagement. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming selective. When someone throws chaos your way, ask, is this mine? Is this true? Does this need my energy? Or just my silence? Sometimes silence is the most powerful protection. It holds your energy intact. It breaks the feedback loop. And most importantly, it teaches your nervous system that your peace doesn't depend on their behavior. This is especially critical when dealing with narcissists or manipulators. The more you react, the more they feed. But the moment you disengage, they lose their grip. Stay grounded, stay sovereign, and choose your battles by the light of your inner clarity, not the shadows of someone else's projection. 6. Stay soft. But with spine protecting your energy doesn't mean becoming hard. It means becoming wise enough to open only where it's safe. Strong enough to love without leaking. Clear enough to feel deeply without drowning in other people's pain. You don't have to choose between kindness and clarity, between openness and discernment, between empathy and boundaries. You can be soft and strong, sensitive and strategic, loving and selective. Your soul was not built to armor itself. It was built to glow with intention. And here's the truth no one told you. Every time you choose to protect your light without dimming it, you heal not just yourself, but the collective field. Because you model something rare in this world, compassion with containment, love without self-abandonment, light without leakage, and that changes everything. 7. Remember, this isn't just personal, it's sacred. Your energy is not just for you. It's a transmission, a frequency, a living medicine that ripples into your work, your relationships, your art, your service. When you let it be siphoned by those who won't grow, you're not just drained, you're distracted from your calling. That's the real cost. But when you protect your energy, not from fear, but from devotion, you become a clear vessel for whatever your soul came here to express. You're not selfish for walking away from those who drain you. You're responsible. You're not cold for refusing to fix everyone. You're discerning. You're not weak for needing rest, silence, solitude, and space. You're remembering who you are. And that remembering, that is protection. Because here's what no one tells you. You don't need to fight for your light. You just need to stop giving it away to those who never intended to honor it. And once you do, something miraculous happens. Your energy doesn't just stay intact, it amplifies, it deepens, it becomes magnetic. And from that place, you don't just survive the world, you begin to change it. In the final part of this journey, we'll reflect on everything you've uncovered and how your awakening is not an accident, but a sacred invitation to rise into who you were always meant to be. If you've made it this far, take a breath, not to rush forward, but to arrive fully, deeply right here. Because this wasn't just an article, it was a remembering of the part of you that has always known, somewhere beneath the noise and wounds and masks, that your sensitivity was never a flaw, that your exhaustion wasn't weakness, but consequence, that your intuition wasn't paranoia, it was prophecy, and that the heaviness you've carried for years might not have been yours to carry at all. Let's be honest, this world doesn't teach you how to guard your soul. It teaches you how to perform, how to survive, how to silence your knowing in order to belong. But now you know better. And once you see the invisible forces that shape your energetic life, you can never unsee them again. Because here's what you've learned. There are people who feed off light without ever learning to create it. They'll charm you, mirror you, need you, but they'll never truly see you, not because they're evil, but because they're empty. Not everyone who looks human is spiritually awake. Not everyone who speaks of love carries it. And not everyone who smiles at you is safe. You've learned how to spot them, not by their appearance, but by your reaction. By the way your spirit contracts in their presence. By the residue they leave behind when they exit the room, and your thoughts feel like static. By the way they pull at your empathy like it's an infinite resource they're entitled to consume. But more importantly, you've remembered who you are in that equation. You're not weak for being affected. You're powerful for being permeable. Because you don't just exist in this world, you feel it, you read it, you translate it into truth, into compassion, into presence. That's not fragility, that's frequency. You are a lightworker, not in a hashtag way, not in a trend or a title, but in the truest spiritual sense. You're someone who came into this lifetime carrying an inner compass that points toward healing even when it hurts. You're someone who wants to build bridges between the seen and unseen, someone who asks deeper questions, someone who bleeds love even when the world forgets how to receive it. And yet, you've also learned this. Your light is not meant to be sacrificed. Your compassion is not a currency for toxic people to trade in. Your empathy is not an unlimited well. Your soul is not a sponge for the unprocessed pain of others. You're allowed to protect it. You're allowed to say no without explaining. You're allowed to walk away without guilt. You're allowed to radiate without being consumed. And that is the real work now. Not just awakening to your gifts, but learning how to sustain them. Not just calling out energetic vampires, but finally stepping out of their orbit. Not just labeling yourself a light worker, but embodying it with boundaries, with discernment, with sacred clarity. So here's what I ask of you. Don't go back to sleep. Don't gaslight your intuition just because someone tells you you're overreacting. Don't dull your insight to protect someone's ego. Don't pour your love into people who only know how to leak it. You've done that enough. You've drained yourself enough. You've tried to fix what doesn't want to heal. Now it's time to choose a new path. A path where your energy is yours first, where your joy is no longer conditional, where your peace is no longer negotiable, where your light no longer flickers based on someone else's opinion of it. You came here for more than survival. You came here to remember yourself, and in doing so, give others permission to remember themselves too. So protect your energy, not from bitterness, but from devotion. Let your boundaries be an act of reverence. Let your silence be a shield. Let your clarity be your sanctuary. And let your light be the quiet revolution that ripples through every room you walk into. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you're too aligned to be missed. Because the truth is, this world needs your light more than ever, but it needs it untouched, undefended, unleashed. And only you can choose to protect it in a way that lets it grow. If this message resonated with something deep in you, don't let it end here. Leave a comment, share your story. Tell us, have you ever felt your energy being siphoned? Have you had to walk away from someone who once felt like home but turned out to be hollow? Drop a opinion in the comments if you're reclaiming your light today. And if this helped you see more clearly, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Because light recognizes light, and your voice may be the very thing that wakes up another soul. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're awakening, and you're exactly where you're meant to be.